From DabbledooMusic, and I'm going to give you a quick overview of how our online resource works for primary schools here in Ireland, and particularly focus on our use of graphic notation and new types of animated graphic notation to encourage both performance and composition in the classroom. So we'll have a quick look at the website, a quick overview, and then I'll show you how the music notation and how our interactive resources work. So all of our resources are delivered to schools online. So this is for primary schools in Ireland. And one of the major factors over here was that there hadn't been a new music curriculum in quite a while, or music resources for schools. So we thought it was time to develop a new one. So this is all delivered online to schools all across the country. And it has all the content that is in the required in the primary school curriculum over here. So there's a combination of listening, composing and performing content for all the schools. So this is all provided online. So a major part of developing this was that the majority of primary school teachers aren't music specialists. So a big part of this was to make the whole project as accessible as possible, so it was easy for teachers and schools to teach the full music curriculum, but in slightly more accessible ways. So we have a huge amount of listening content across all different genres and styles. And then of course we have for each class full yearly content we deliver. So a lot of this is, as I said, based on a lot of the listening content we have, but a lot of the performing and composing content that we have uses a system of music notation that was developed specifically for working with primary schools and also for working with teachers who perhaps weren't that experienced in teaching music. And this is in the resource section, and this is what we'll be looking at. So a lot of this developed from my research in 2008 in Trinity College Dublin into music notation, graphic notation and animated music notation, and finding new ways to create new types of notation that would make it easy to teach in the classroom and easy for children to access, particularly performing activities and composing activities in the classroom. So there's 5 different sections here, and throughout the year the children go along each one of these and cover different areas and different musical concepts as we go on. And there's different levels here depending on the different age group. So the very first section here, this really looks at sounds and symbols. So this is the basis of graphic notation, so connecting sounds and symbols. And it's also very good for early literacy for children, for connecting those sounds and symbols. So we start by asking the children to make the sounds below. Maybe you can join in as well. So if we see this symbol, we make the sound T. If we see this, we make the doorbell sound, ding dong. And it moves to more, well, we've got a pig, so the pig would make the sound. And then it moves to more abstract ideas, like a line starting low and going high. So doing that with our voices, it would be ooh. And the other way around, starting our voices high and going down low, it's boo. And a combination of the two, or going up and down, ooh. Then 3 dots, blup blup blup, or blup blup blup, or so these are abstract symbols that can be interpreted in different ways. So I suppose that's an important part as well when we get them composing using their own symbols and sound combinations, that they have the freedom to create their own sound symbol connections. So let's say we've made all these sounds with the class. The next stage is to look at these in sequences. So this is our introduction to, again, music literacy, but also to get them into the idea of composing using symbols and shapes. So I press play here, and we have to say, is it the top line, the middle line, or the bottom? So is it 1, 2, or 3? So here we go. Ding dong, blip blip blip. And that was the top one here. So we go through a series of these, and then that leads them into activities, composition activities, where they're thinking of maybe a different theme. Say they could be thinking of sounds from a farm, and they think of all the different sounds you hear in a farm and create symbols for each one and put them into their own sequence. So this is also introduced in these interactive resources in the composition section. So there's a section where the children now will get to choose, And it's also another important part for the whole method here is dividing up the class into 4 different color groups. So this is a method where if you've got a large group of children trying to make sound together, it's beneficial to have them all grouping together and making their own little sounds like they would in an orchestra. So with this activity, the children then get to choose their own symbols and assign them. So they've divided up into 4 different color groups. So a child will go up to the whiteboard and say choose the pig. That's usually their favorite sound, and then they fill that in underneath, and then the next child will go up and choose their own and fill it into whatever color that they're coming up from. And so they've created their own sequence, and then they can perform this with their voices again. And this can be done also on worksheets as well. So it's a great introduction to composition from a very simple point of view. But this develops then to more advanced parts for older classes, where they can really focus on instruments and how they sound, and particularly instruments interpreting these different symbols. So in this one, we're looking at different types of guitar: acoustic guitar, classical guitar, bass guitar, and electric guitar. And let's see which one this is. So you can hear that's the bass guitar. It's sliding up and down, and then this one where it zigzags in pitch up and down again. Let's see. Or it attempts to make the sound of a pig, so it's interpreting this sound of a pig. And the 3 dots. So this is a great opportunity for the children to listen to the different sounds of instruments, but also to see how instruments can interpret these symbols and get to explore different instrumental sounds and how they work. So there's a whole range of different ways they can interact and do some serious listening into the different instruments. And they can also get more used to how these instruments work by again playing this spotting the line game. And that would be the bottom one. So this color-coded system then continues to something that we call the clock, and this is a great one for getting instruments out in the classroom and a great way to structure the performances. So first we ask them a simple question sometimes to get them moving along. How many colors in the clock? There's 5 colors here. So we have white, and we divide the class up. We can make up a sound for each color. So we could make up vocal sounds for this, and each group has a particular vocal sound, or we could use simple instruments. This can work with any instruments they have. So let's say yellow is a shaker, got one here, and then let's say red, the red group of children would get like chime bars, and you can go on, divide up the instruments like that. So it works really with whatever instruments the class or the teacher would have available to them, and when the hand passes over your color, that's when each group makes their sound. So that's as simply as it works here. So here we go. So you'd have the full shaker group shaking. It could be just simple noise, or they could even come up with a rhythm. So a lot of that will be left up to the children to explore and find different ways of making sounds and different things. And then the red group. And then that's the silent moment. And then they're waiting to go again. And then say a homemade shaker here with pasta in it. So the clock is a great way for them to just get used to hearing the different sounds in different groups and performing together in a way that really keeps them engaged as they can see the colors that are coming, and they can make the connection between the color and the sound from different parts of the classroom. And as I said, this can work just with very simple sounds with younger children, but it can also work with older children who want to experiment more and use rhythms or pitch or explore different chords or different combinations of notes, and they can really work to be creative and find their own way and their own sound for each group. That's a simple version of the clock. The next version of the clock is one where we can actually compose as well, so we can start filling in the colors of the clock. So this version of the clock also has 2 layers, so we can have 2 sounds happening at the same time. So we could have the chime bars and the shakers at the same time, so they can work with different combinations and different textures of sounds. So this is also another part where the children can compose. They can come up to the front of the classroom and fill in the different colors, and also choose their instruments and choose what they're going to do with those instruments. And they can choose the speed of the hand of the clock as it moves around and the amount of times the hand of the clock repeats and passes around. So we can also fill this in live as we're going along, which is a way they can be composing and arranging the piece as the piece is actually happening. And we can change the speed of the clock here. So the clock is an amazing way just to get great organization of a performance, but also leave loads of room for the children to be really creative and have loads of fun making up their own sounds. So there's another even version of the clock here that is 3 layers. So now we can have 3 different sounds or pitches or rhythms or whatever it is playing at the same time. And for the older classes and children, this gives them loads of options for interesting performances. The next section is Igor, and this introduces rhythm. So in this one, I'll do a quick example here. Now we build up slowly through each of these. So in the first level of this, we'd only be looking at S and T for the infant classes, younger classes, to make vocal sounds. But this is one that's aimed around the middle of 3rd class, where we can choose different symbols, add them in, and we can add them in and compose as we're going along. And these can also relate in the lesson plans to conventional notation. So we're getting closer and closer to ideas of conventional music notation, so we can associate these with crotchets and crotchet rests. So we can click go here, and we have an octopus friend of ours that comes and keeps the pulse and counts along with us. And I'll play red for the chime bar, and I'll play the shaker for the blue. Clap and green, green, red, red and blue. Clap, green, green and blue. So you can have, again, any types of instruments with any of these. You could use body percussion, you could have them clapping along with different bits, or you can use, as I was, simple classroom instruments that you might have. So the very first part of this will have the class playing along with Igor, and it's a great way for them to learn counting and kind of instill this idea of counting 4 beats and their sense of rhythm and counting and pulse at the same time. And then when they get used to it, Igor joins in. So we keep going with it. Clap, green, green. Clap, green, green. Clap, green, green. So you can play along with this as well. Clap and green, green. Green, green. So that's another one of the resources that develops, I said, pulse, rhythm, and learning to kind of count and perform together in a group as well. So we can perform as 4 different separate groups playing at the same time. So again, that levels up for the older classes, where they can have the option to compose their own, but this time around, as I said before, this would equate to crotchets, but we now have an option of 2 quavers here. So this is where we're getting closer to conventional notation, but through a simplified version of notation that's accessible for all the teachers and accessible for all the children in the class, regardless of their previous musical experience, but at the same time being challenging and something fun and new for children who might play instruments in the classroom. For example, they could bring in their instruments into the classroom and play them and show the other children their skills and talents, but it doesn't leave out children who have little experience, so they can all join in together. So that's the Igor section. The next section again gets closer to conventional music notation, and this is one where we have lines here. So we have in this one and we have do, re, mi, so we have the tonic solfa in here, and we have lines as instead of lines to represent the pitches. So this again is in linking with the curriculum here in Ireland, where we have we focus on 3 notes first and a simplified version of staff notation here. So in this version, Jazz Cat, I'll go back there for a sec, Jazz Cat will play the green parts, bum, 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 and we'll all sing la, la, la. Everyone can sing along with me. We'll sing all the blue bits and all the red bits. Usually in the class you divide up blue and red, but everyone can, or you can choose a colour and sing along. So there's a listening and we're counting, and we're developing our pitch as well. So here we go. La la la, la la la. Now we can do la, we can do oohs or whatever we want. Ooh, and explore. We can even make up words for this, and there's loads of different ways we can do it. La la la, and then oohs for blooming. Ooh, and so on. But let's stop it there because there's another version. These all come with a backing track. So Jazz Cat is our character here, and he plays a Casio keyboard instead of a Casio keyboard. So if we want to hear more from him, we can press more Casio, and then we're going to have a backing track along with this as well. So as you can see, all the way across, we're counting 4 bars each time we go across. So this is a great way of getting the children performing, singing together in different groups in the class, listening to the backing track, getting used to hearing where those 3 notes fit in with the harmony underneath. And as I said, they're really accessible for any teacher and any child to get involved with. You can also bring in instruments. As I said, if there's children in the class who are more experienced, they could even bring in instruments and play along with these pieces. So level 2 moves up to pentatonic versions of Jazz Cat, and I'll show one of those. And then level 3 moves up to a full major scale and minor scale. So there's loads of different versions of these Jazz Cats that we can get used to, different types of scales, and get used to really pitching and visualizing the contour of the melody, especially for the younger classes, is to visualize the up and down and the contour of the melody, and again tying in with conventional music notation as well. And we can turn on the backing tracks whatever we want. So there are a range of notes involved in there, including rests, as you saw in the last one, that we can then connect to conventional notation after we've gone through the performance there. The very final section then is one where we have different performance pieces, again based on this color-coded animated notation. And this is one we have different versions of different types of music from around the world. There's a Christmas song in there. There's Hill and Gully Rider, which is a Jamaican song. There's Cheche Kule, Frere Jacques, Cheche Kule from Ghana, and Eomac. So there's even an electronic music techno piece in there by an Irish producer called Eomac. But I'll show you, just to show you how this final performance area works, an Irish polka. So again, this is one that the children in Ireland will be very familiar with. It's a type of polka. The Irish polka is very popular down in the south of Ireland, in Kerry and Limerick and Cork. And this polka is one that's recognised all over the place, a very distinctive couple of quavers at the start of it. So the polka goes beep beep diddle diddle dum da dum dit dit diddle diddle dum da dum dit dit diddle diddle dum dum da dee da dee da dee da beep beep diddle diddle dum da dum beep beep diddle diddle dum dum. And it's that beep beep rhythm that is the very distinctive bit that they'll all know. So I'll just show you the screen for a second here and the instruments that I'll be using. So we would have, say, the first group making a or even a shaker, but it's a popular, well-known tune that a lot of the classes know, but there's a great way for getting them all performing it together. So maybe you can choose a color, so blue, red, green or yellow, and you can either clap your hands or grab an instrument and try and join in with it. I'll stick with yellow and I'll be leading the way. Okay, so here we go. One, two, three, more. Then red. blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, and then yellow back in. Two together. Doubles up and everyone on the beep beep together. Beep beep. Beep beep. So that's a quick overview of the resources section of DabbledooMusic. So I said the whole point of this is to make music as accessible as possible to all children and all teachers, regardless of their levels of previous musical experience. And I found that this type of graphic notation and animated notation and the color coding makes it a lot more practical and accessible and fun for getting into the music making in the classroom. So thanks very much. Hope you all enjoyed that. My name has been Shane, and if anyone has any comments or any feedback at all, you can contact me at shane@dabbledoomusic.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much, and goodbye.